Hey everyone, it's Zara, and I am back to film my reading journal for the month of December, as well as do kind of a wrap up for 2024 since we are done with the year. So moving into my reading, I read every day in the month of December, mostly just for an hour or two, before bed or in the morning. But at the end of the month, I was trying to read more, and you'll see that when we get to when I read my books. But definitely had a good reading month this month to wrap up the year. Didn't meet my reading goal, but we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So moving into my overview, I read 12 books this month, which is second only to January, I believe. January, I think I read 13. A couple of them, 5 of them were short stories, so that definitely helped. But yeah, I had a pretty good reading month overall. My favorite book was Breaking Dawn, which, as we'll get into later, Twilight series was definitely like a guilty pleasure reread, and so not surprising that that was one of my favorites just because it's pretty nostalgic to me. Then moving into December, my monthly, like when I started and finished books. As you can see, I finished a lot of books in the last week of the year, partially because, with the holidays, I had some days off. Also just wanting to finish some books before the end of the year. This is when I started reading a lot of the short stories as well, but I did have some reading at the start of the month as well. Then moving into my monthly goals, I read every day on my Kindle. Most of my books this month were Kindle reads. I have the hard copies of the Twilight series, but I opted to read it on my Kindle or, my phone through the Kindle app because that was just convenience sake. I read a lot if I have insomnia in the middle of the night or before I go to bed, and so I always have my phone on me, and it just worked out well. I did read one physical book, and then I had 2 audiobooks that were kind of spaced in there as well. I did some Bookopoly. I'd never got a brown cover book. I read a lot of, colorful or black covers. And then a book you meant to read last year. I did want to reread the Twilight series last year, and I never got around to it, so I used that. For Roll Your Read, Set in Another Country, I did The Minor Adjustment Beauty Salon, a 2-word title, New Moon. And then these are all the books that I was in the process of reading. I did finish everything that I was reading in the, 2024 year, so I can start fresh in 2025, which is another reason why I was hustling to finish some books last minute, just so I could kind of start fresh, start with a fresh blank slate. I ended up having a few different bingos, which was good. And then my priorities for the month, I read every day. I didn't read my December book of the month. I think I'm going to try to read that, kind of one of the first books I read in January. And then I prepped my 2025 reading planner. I also had my winter challenge that I completed. This one was from Peanut Butter Taco, I believe. And, finished that off. Then moving into my Goodreads tracker, this is from the Shelfie Chronicles. And as you'll see, I read a lot of books on my Kindle, as indicated by the icons. And then this brought my total books to 95 for the year. Last year, I think I read 111 or 112, so I had set my goal as 105 for the year. This summer, I did not read as much. I was in my first trimester of pregnancy, and I was just tired. I wasn't feeling good. I took a lot of naps, and so I just ended up not getting as much read. I couldn't focus on reading as much. So that's part of the reason why I didn't finish as many. Still proud of getting the 95 read. That's great. And yeah, I don't know what I'll set my 2025 reading goal at, because we'll have a new baby and unsure what that will look like, but I think I'll probably still set it somewhere between 75 and 100. Maybe I'll just stick with 100, and then if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. But 95 for 2024. And then looking at my monthly review, again, like I mentioned, this summer I did not read as much because I, was busy, not feeling well, and then picked up again at the end of the year, which was good, but, definitely that affected my overall reading for the year. And then getting into the individual books. The first book I read is The Minor Adjustment Beauty Salon. This one is number, I think, 14 in the #1 Ladies Detective Agency series. These are just fun, cozy mysteries. I listen to them with my husband on audiobook a lot when we drive, on long road trips or have a trip planned out, just because it works well, for just kind of an easy listening that we both enjoy. This one was especially kind of fitting for the time frame because one of the characters gets pregnant, and that adds just like another dimension to the story. And then kind of the two main mysteries that they're solving or cases that they're working. One, they have a new salon in town. Obviously this is the Minor Adjustment Beauty Salon, that there's someone spreading bad rumors about this place, and she's not getting any customers because of this bad publicity, this bad rumor that's going around. And so they're, kind of tasked with figuring out what's going on there. And then there's also a farmer that had died, and his will is to leave everything to his nephew, but the agent or the attorney that's handling the will thinks that there's something fishy with the nephew and doesn't know if the nephew is who he says he is. And so they are tasked with trying to figure out, his real identity, or if it really is the nephew, and the estate agent or the attorney is wrong. So 4 stars, nice, cozy, like I said, extra enjoyable because of the pregnant character just hitting at the right time since I'm pregnant. But enjoy that series. It's always a good time. Next, I have the Stillwater Girls. This one is a thriller I've had on my shelf for probably like over a year now, and I was excited to finally read it. It wasn't quite what I was expecting. A lot of times I'll buy books because they sound interesting, and then when I actually go to read them, I've forgotten what they were about, and I don't reread the back always. So that's kind of what happened with this one. But you have this off-the-grid homestead and these 2 sisters who are living there. Their mom and their sister left like a month ago, or a month or 2 months ago, something like that, to find medical help because their sister was really sick, and they never return. So now winter is setting in, they're almost out of rations, they have to figure out what to do because they've never left this homestead. They don't, stray into the woods because their mom said, never to leave kind of the safety bubble that they were in. She was the one that would get supplies, and sell like goat's milk soap or something like that. Their animals are dying, like I said, their food is running low. So as they're trying to figure out what they're gonna have to do, a strange man shows up at their house, and he doesn't offer much explanation. He's, very scary to them because they don't have interactions with the outside world. So I don't think that they've really ever seen a man or had much interaction with other people, strangers. And so they're terrified, and they decide that they're going to run away from him and, escape. And then, it goes on from there. So I enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. I read it in just 2 days. It wasn't very long, 256 pages, and I enjoyed it. It had some nice twists to it. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, but it ended up still being, you know, kind of an interesting read. Then I reread the Twilight series, which, I mean, if you don't know what Twilight's about, you probably don't care at this point, but Twilight is a young adult, you know, kind of romance novel, and you have Bella and Edward. Bella moves to Forks, Washington, and she's intrigued by Edward and his family, who are obviously different than everyone else, and, you know, they eventually form a romance, and she finds out he's a vampire. So, you know, and then from there, the story continues. You get, you know, Jacob being introduced with being, you know, kind of her best friend, and he has his own secrets. I won't go too much into it because, like I said, I mean, if you want to read Twilight, you probably have by this point, and if you haven't read Twilight, you probably don't care. But for me, this is just a very nostalgic read. I remember reading these when they first came out, and when I was in middle school and high school, and I've reread them multiple times over the years, and I've just had this urge to reread them, so I gave them all 5 stars. I mean, they are, they just hit a spot, you know, like a nostalgic, sweet spot. Love them. So I read the first 3, then I took a little bit of a break to read some short stories, and then I'll have the last one at the end. But yeah, I really enjoy the Twilight series. Again, partially because of the nostalgic factor, and, you know, it just kind of hits home. So now I need to go rewatch the movies, because that's the next thing that'll kind of fill that longing I have for it right now. So then moving into the short stories, these were all a collection released by Amazon. They had a short story collection that they released for Valentine's Day that I just read a month or so ago, and those short stories were, you know, like half of them I liked, half of them I didn't, and it was kind of the same with these, but I thought overall these ones were not as good as the Valentine's Day ones. I think, and I was trying to think about why that could have been, and I don't know if partially, you know, Valentine's Day is already romantic, and so I think it's easy to tie a romance story into that. Christmas isn't necessarily romantic, and some of these stories felt like they were trying to just be like a romance novel that then they like set it on the 24th or the 25th to make it Christmas, but that doesn't make it a Christmas story, if that makes sense. So anyways, we'll dive in. I think my favorite was the first one. This one, you have 2 childhood friends, Jamie and Mark. Jamie goes over to like Mark's parents' house to borrow a pan, and he's there, and there's a blizzard churning outside. The power goes out, and he says, like, you know, you can't walk your way back over to your house because it was like a mile away or something like that. You know, stay here until the storm passes and the lights come back on. And they were childhood friends. Her best friend is his sister. So they've known each other basically their whole lives, and they end up reconnecting during this blizzard and, you know, kind of talking some things through that have been going on. So enjoyed it. Like I said, I think this one was my favorite. And again, this one felt appropriately named. The next 2, I feel like were not Christmassy, but then they just tried to make them Christmassy. So for Merry Ever After, I hated this one. Gave it 1 star. I tried to be nice and give it 2, and then I just couldn't do it. But this one, start to finish, the writing is very cringy. The writing was just like, they would say things and I'm like, ooh, like, people don't say that in real life. And if they do, you'd go running the other way. Like, you wouldn't be, I don't know, like, eating it up. And so I just had a hard time with these characters. You have a seamstress who works at this thrift shop, and she wants to make her own clothes and, you know, sell her own designs and things like that. But she's a single mom with a baby. And then you have this farmer that comes in, and they talk so much about how he's just this huge guy. He's so big. He's so big. And like, no pants fit him. And, you know, he rips a pair of pants trying them on at the thrift store. And then in the end, like, she ends up making him a pair of pants, and then that's how they start kind of talking. And yeah, I didn't like this story. I just really didn't like this. It's not very Christmassy. It just felt like they, like I said, tacked on that it was right around Christmas. It also took place in Texas, which I've always lived where it snows for Christmas or it's cold. And so maybe that's also part of it, is the location doesn't make me think of Christmas either. But the only real Christmassy thing that happened was he gave her a Christmas present. Otherwise, it just felt like they were trying to make it into a Christmas story when it wasn't. So I only gave it 1 star. Don't recommend it. Save your reading for something better. Then we have All by My Elf. This one I also gave a negative review. I gave it 2 stars. So this one essentially is these 3 people that are adjunct professors at this university take a winter job for the month of December as elves driving around. Basically, it's like a weenie mobile, but the company is like Mrs. Claus's mincemeat pies or something like that. So it's been like refurbished into a mincemeat pie mobile, and they talk about how phallic the car, the mobile, looks. And so that's a big part of the story. And then basically they get stuck in a snowstorm and there's an accident, and then they, you know, to pass the time, they're playing Never Have I Ever. I thought this one, the characters, they're supposed to be, you know, adjunct professors that have their PhDs, that are probably, you know, in their 30s. And it just didn't feel like they were actually in like that age group. It felt like they were, you know, a lot younger based on their interactions. I gave it 2 stars because I at least appreciated that there was a little bit of a, you know, you knew each other beforehand, and then now you're stuck in this situation and romance maybe blossoms. That was a little bit more believable than, you know, like some of the other stories where it just happens like boom, 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 and, you know, it seems too fast. But again, it just didn't really feel super Christmassy. There were a lot of focuses on things that I just didn't find interesting about, you know, the job, and then the you know, like I said, the mincemeat mobile. That was just weird to me. So 2 stars, again, not one I would recommend. Next we have Merriment and Mayhem. This one was decent. I gave it 3 stars. This one was, you know, just kind of a fun, quick one that you have Everly, and I can't remember if it was her aunt's house or her grandma's house, but some relative's house that she has inherited, and she's trying to get it ready for, you know, going on the market, but she wants to celebrate some of these last Christmas traditions because her family member that passed away was very much into Christmas and decorating and making cookies, all that good stuff. So she's trying to, you know, have one last big Christmas to pay homage to that relative, but she's kind of disaster prone. So she has multiple instances where she has the fire department called on her, and that's when she meets a firefighter, and they, you know, kind of hit it off. And again, I thought that one was cute. I liked the holiday element. It felt appropriately festive. Then last but not least, we have Only Santa's in the Building. This one, you follow a comic book illustrator, Evie, and she is on a deadline to get this book out, or these illustrations out by a deadline, and she notices that these ornaments keep getting left at her apartment, you know, doorknob hung to her door. And, you know, she's not really sure, you know, what's going on with it, if other people are getting them too, or, you know, who's making them for her. But she appreciates them because she hasn't had time to decorate her tree. And, you know, it's just kind of a, I don't know, a nice holiday gift. So then there's a big holiday party in their building, and she's trying to, you know, thank the person that she thinks is the one that is giving her these ornaments, and, you know, gets to talking to some other neighbors in her building, and I'll leave it there. So again, this one had a nice festive element to it. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. So overall, you know, not, like I said, not as good as the Valentine's read. I think this one was my favorite, but really any of them were skippable if you know, outside of December. So now moving on to Full House. I love the Janet Ivanovich Stephanie Plum series, and I've had this one on my bookshelf for a while, and I noticed the audiobook came available, or, you know, was available when I was just scrolling trying to find some books to download. And I don't recommend this one as an audiobook. I found it very annoying. One of the characters is described as having kind of like a Betty Boop voice, and it was awful to listen to. And I get it that the narrator is just trying to narrate it as expected, or, you know, as described. So it's not necessarily the narrator's fault, but reading the book, imagining the voice versus actually listening to it, it just took something out of the experience, or it just was not there for me. So this book is a series. I don't know if I'll read more in the series, but I have a lot of the books on my bookshelf. And you have Billy, who's a divorced mom of 2. Her kids are on summer vacation with their dad for a month. And so she's just kind of filling her time because she misses them, and decides to take a polo class, like on horses, but she doesn't really ride horses. And so there's an accident where the horse steps on her foot, and the owner of the, you know, polo class, Nick, ends up, you know, taking her to the hospital and then taking her home to, you know, rest and recover. And Nick is a very eligible bachelor. He's a very, very eligible bachelor. He's, you know, kind of like a, you know, from old money, owns some businesses in town, you know, kind of a guy. And so definitely different, you know, social classes, but they hit it off and, you know, kind of form a little bit of a thing. Well, Nick has a cousin who's staying with him, Dee Dee, who he wants to rehome for the 2 weeks before her wedding because she's getting on his nerves. And with Billy having an empty house, you know, not having her kids there, he thinks that's the perfect solution. So they end up having Dee Dee move in, and Dee Dee is the one with the annoying voice that sounds like Betty Boop. There were a lot of things that Dee Dee said that I think would hit differently based on when the book was written and when it is now. I think this one was published in 2002, So she talks a little bit about like not eating food to stay skinny, and I don't know, she's, you know, just an interesting character. So not my favorite, but you know, the book has some really funny moments. There's like a mystery at the end too. It kind of got dark at the end, which, you know, was a little unexpected because it was so kind of lighthearted for most of the book. And then at the end it got dark. But ends on a happy note. And yeah, I don't know. It was fine, but I think, you know, like I said, not my favorite, and definitely not sure if I'm going to pick up the rest of them or not, but I would not pick it up as an audiobook if I were to do it again. And then last book for the year was Breaking Dawn. Again, just finishing off the Twilight series. It hit in a special space, especially because I'm pregnant right now. You know, no complaints. And that brought my total to 95 books for the year. And then I'll quickly flip through my challenges in the back just to show you guys what I completed for the year. I did finish, this was the monthly reading challenge from Peanut Butter Taco, and so I did finish a book for every month, which was great. I like these monthly challenges when there's just one prompt that you have to focus on. It makes it a little bit easier. Then I have the Pop Sugar Challenge. This one had a lot of weird prompts that I didn't finish, so, you know, I guess I could have read a book about pirates. That wouldn't have been too hard, but a book about a 24-year-old specifically, you know, sometimes it didn't always say people's ages in the books. An autobiography by a woman in rock and roll. I just didn't read any autobiographies. Nonfiction, I didn't read a lot of this year. 24th book by an author. Again, maybe I read something, but I didn't put it there. I did read a book about dragons, but then I had already used Fourth Wing somewhere else. And so then by the time I turned, and then I said, oh, I should have put that there. These stickers were from the, oh goodness, where were these from? Can't think of it right now. She's in Canada. And so, you know, since they had, you know, kind of the filled out light colored background, they weren't ones that I could change my mind about what prompt I wanted to use a book for. So there were a couple that I probably could have filled in if I would have prioritized them differently. But overall, you know, didn't finish it, but I wasn't intending to finish all of my challenges this year. I mostly just did them as a way to, you know, see what I could read based on what I was already planning on reading, or what I could complete based on what I was already reading. So then I have the Harry Potter and the Order of the Planners Flourish and Blots Newts Challenge of 2024. This was fun, you know, basically based on the different classes that Harry Potter and his friends could have attended. They had prompts for each class, and then there was like a bonus challenge at the top of each challenge. So I did a lot of these, not all of them. This one I probably could have finished again if I would have just kind of arranged some things differently, but same thing. These were from the same shop that I just am totally drawing a blank on right now, but you know, the Sticker Party, that's who it is. The Sticker Party is, like I said, since she had the colorful backgrounds, just not one that I was willing to change my mind on and white out and ruin the aesthetic for. I did finish my report card. I got nothing less than a poor, and I got a couple of O outstandings. So that was kind of a fun way to grade the challenges as well. Again, moving into the Sticker Party stickers, I didn't actually put any of these on the Taylor Swift Lover House, but I did finish all of the prompts, and then the intention was for you to stick them onto the Lover House, but I just didn't. But finished that one. Then I have my peanut butter taco. I think this was just kind of a general reading challenge that she had. And I did do a lot of these books. Having a unique name makes it hard when they have, you know, read a book by an author that has your same name or same first name. So that one's just always a hard prompt for me to finish in general. Read a book written the year you were born. I read a lot of newer releases, a book by a celebrity, and then a classic. Again, I could have used Oliver Twist for that because that was my classic that I read this year, but that fit better for a book that scares me. A to Z reading challenge. I completed everything except for the letter Q, which I thought was excellent. The genre challenge. This one was from the Shelfie Chronicles. I didn't read self-help, poetry, true crime, or dystopian this year, but I did fill out a lot of the others. And then I had my Read the States challenge. I thought it would be interesting not only to fill out where a book took place, but also to, I did tallies for other books that were set in that state. So, you know, for Illinois, I have Daisy Jones and the Six that I picked for that. But then I also had overall, including Daisy Jones, 4 books that said they were set in Illinois. So that was just kind of a fun, you know, seeing where a lot of books take place. California was the most. I had a number in Washington and Virginia. So those would be probably, oh, and then New York. I guess those would be like the top 4 states that I read books from. And then I meant to go in and maybe fill this out, but I don't know if I will. I was going to color in the states at some point, but just never got around to it and not sure that I will actually do it. Then I have this thriller and mystery challenge. This one was from the Shelfie Chronicles. I didn't get one with a weapon on the cover. Classic mystery. Well, that one I could have, I guess, gotten. Well, I read some Agatha Christie, but then it was more spy, the one that I am thinking of. Locked room mystery, true crime. Then I have a thriller challenge from Peanut Butter Taco. And then I didn't have a school setting or Trapped Together. Read the Screen. I read, this is kind of a continuation, I think, from 2023. But I did read a number of books that fit the movies. I just haven't watched a lot of the movies that go with it, if that makes sense. Like Me Before You, Daisy Jones and the Six, Red, White, and Royal Blue are all ones that I still would like to read. I did read Lessons in Chemistry. I should cross that off. But the rest of them, I did, because it was basically The Hunger Games and Harry Potter, which I did rewatch this year. Or last year, I can't remember. So then I also had the Black History Readathon. This one I just kind of, instead of keeping it just in the month of February, I filled it out as I finished some books. I didn't read too many. I had 6 total. But this was a fun challenge. This was from the Shelfie Chronicles as well. Then I have my book bingo. This is a printable from Plan with Elise that I just kind of filled in with prompts that made me think of myself or things that I thought would be interesting to do. A lot of the ones I didn't finish, I moved to my book bingo board for 2025. But I did get, you know, a couple of bingos, or maybe I just got one bingo. Well, I got one, so that's pretty good. But some of them were a little bit harder, like 2 dogs on the cover. A lot of books that had a dog just had 1. But I'd written it 2 dogs just because that's what I have. I have 2 dogs. Then moving into this book Tetris, I can't remember if I think this was maybe the Shelfie Chronicles, and I did it based on genre. I never had a memoir that I read. And then, you know, obviously a lot of mystery thrillers. Others were, I'm trying to think, like young adult, anything nonfiction. I had a lot of romance, but, you know, kind of a nice smattering. I didn't have a book Tetris, or I didn't buy a book Tetris for next year. which I think would have been fun to do. So, you know, wouldn't mind doing this again in the future because I enjoyed it. Then I had my Roll Your Read challenge. This was from Peanut Butter Taco. I'd roll the dice, and then there were coordinating cards that would, you know, give me prompts based on what color and stuff that I rolled. I never rolled a red. Only rolled one yellow. And this one was a lot of fun. I kind of, part of me is tempted to move this over into my next planner, but I have other challenges that I added in for 2025, so I probably won't. Same with Bookopoly. I enjoyed this a lot. This was from the Shelfie Chronicles, but I don't think she makes it anymore, which is too bad. I would try to, at least once a month, if not twice a month, try to, you know, roll and get a new, you know, Monopoly square. So it was a lot of fun just to, you know, have books that were, I don't know, maybe something that I had been putting off reading, or, you know, put other books higher up in my TBR list, so to speak. But that was everything. So 2024 was a pretty good reading year overall. Like I said, I didn't meet my reading goal, but I think I still read a lot of good books. This year I was less focused on completing challenges, which I thought was good just because 2023 I felt a lot of pressure to try to finish all of the challenges that I had started. And this year it was just kind of a fun fill them in as I read them, and if I don't finish them all, that's fine. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you had a good 2024, and you know, I'll be back very shortly with my what I read in, or what my reading journal is going to look like for 2025 video. So I will talk to you all later. Bye.